Ladies and gentlemen, this is a new max damage build for Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Just a single hit easily getting over 4 million damage, or even Ring of Chaos getting over 5 million damage. This build is totally crazy. You will have 205,000 warrior damage at 750% crit damage, and you don't even have to use that stupid belt anymore. This is definitely the best build I've ever made, and I have never had so much fun playing this game than ever before. Hitting everybody just with millions and millions of damage. You can even kill a mercenary on Nightmare just with a normal Ring of Chaos. But the best thing of all this is that your hunter damage will also be 205,000 with also 750% crit damage. That means your predator shots can be over 14 million damage. That's the highest predator shot I have ever made in this game. You can officially now beat the shit out of your enemies by just using a single arrow. And of course we can also beat the Cyclops just with a single swing. You might now ask yourself, how is all this possible? Well, a lot of it is just using the gear system and understanding the mechanics to your advantage, but I've also found another nice trick to increase my damage when I make my hits. Just run around your enemy so that he is alerted, and then you can make a much easier and clean hit from behind, because he is slowed down and you have all the time in the world to really turn around, hit him from behind, and also get the increased damage when time is slowed down. That's especially useful with the light attack with blunts, and also for loud attacks that will likely alert your enemy before you can even perform them. While the additional damage from the time when it's slowed down is actually very minimal, it's less than 10% additional warrior damage, but it allows you to make the perfect hits, and together with this build I was able to pull off some really crazy numbers. When I pulled off a perfect light attack from behind, I was able to hit over 3.2 million damage. And with a heavy attack I even got 4.3 million damage. That's only topped by the charged heavy, which was over 13 to 14 million, and then Ring of Chaos with over 5 million damage for the first time ever, Furious the Bloodline with almost 16 million, and by the overpower attack, which is a little bit weaker when you use blunts, that has only 27 million. If you could reach the same stats with swords, then you would be able to get over 30 million easily. And with our arrows we are also breaking new records, with a normal arrow just being over 2 million, with multi-shot easily hitting between 4 and 5 million damage, the devastating shot being between 9 and 11 million, and the predator shot being between 12 and 14 million damage. And I'm sure with more perfect conditions you might even break more records by using this build. And also special thanks to my super fans Bruce and Grateful Golem, and don't forget to check out the Discord server or decide to become a patron or a member of this channel to get some cool wallpapers, personal build advice and more. In the inventory you see we have 205,590, that's slightly higher than in the previous highest damage build, but the biggest difference is actually the way higher critical damage. So we have higher warrior damage and even a lot higher critical damage, plus 75% to be precise. But the best thing of course is that the big combo will not only amplify your warrior damage by a factor of 1.6 to give you over 200,000 warrior damage, but you will also be able to use these 205,000 warrior damage when you shoot your arrows, because the big combo will add all its DPS to your left melee weapon and also use this value when you shoot your arrows. So that's the crazy thing, and that's the reason why it is the best item in the game. If you don't have it, then just check out the Helix store and just claim it with your 200 free Helix credits. You will not regret it. And of course I've also calculated all the damage per engraving for this specific build, so if you're interested how the calculation works, check out the description for all the detailed calculations. Here's just an overview about which engraving is better to use. On our left melee slot we actually use the Boetian Rhapsody. That's a heavy blunt with warrior damage, damage with heavy blunts and 50% critical damage. And we also engrave 30% armor penetration, because heavy blunts have a special lack of armor penetration. Every weapon type has its own armor penetration value, and especially for blunts it is really useful to engrave armor penetration, but of course it's also very useful for arrows. It is the biggest damage driver for arrows together with the 100% damage increase. It gives you almost as much damage as if you use an additional 100% damage. The good thing about the Boetian Rhapsody is that you can simply loot it from a small chest in Boetia, in the temple here in Thebes. Similar to Hater's Harper, it's not a unique weapon, but it has perfect stats for that weapon type, with Warrior damage, damage with that weapon type, in this case heavy blunts, and critical damage. The second melee weapon will also be a perfect heavy blunt with warrior damage, damage with heavy blunts and critical damage. You could have actually gotten another one from Sargon last week, but if you missed out on that, you either go for a second Boeotian Rhapsody in a New Game Plus, or you simply go to the blacksmith and try your luck with reloading the blacksmith to get a perfect heavy blunt here on the second slot. And on this one, we engrave the convert 50% hunter damage bonus to all damage. Because we have 40% hunter damage from our abilities, 20% from the masteries, and another 23% on the bighorn bow, we have a total of 83% hunter damage, and if we convert 50% of that, we will get an additional 41.5% warrior damage out of that conversion engraving. So that's better than using the 30% all damage, and that's why we use it here. Our bow of course will be the bighorn bow. It doesn't have any awesome stats here, hunter damage, adrenaline, you can totally forget about that. We will simply engrave the 100% damage increase, but health capped to 25%, so we get the absolute maximum damage here. Of course this is a glass build. If you are not fine with using a glass build here, you can just go for the 30% all damage of course, then your character will stay at full health and that's alright. The bow is actually amplifying your warrior damage almost by a factor of 1.6 by adding all its 6495 DPS to your left melee weapon, and it also uses your warrior damage when you shoot your arrows, so you have also 205,000 hunter damage. That's the crazy thing why you should get this bow. If you still have your 200 free Helix credits, go to the Helix store, claim this item, you will not regret it, and even you won't regret it if you buy it, because it is simply the best item in the game. For our helmet, we will use a random epic helmet here with warrior damage, 20% crit chance while full health, 50% crit damage, and then we engrave another 20% warrior damage. You can engrave another 20% warrior damage if you have upgraded warrior damage to the maximum 20%, as long as it is not on the second or third position. You might now ask yourself, what about fire damage? Should we not engrave fire damage because it's 40%? Actually, that would be worse than using 20% warrior damage, because your warrior damage is amplified by your weapon damage factor and the elemental damage is not. So when you have 20% warrior damage, this will be amplified by your weapon damage factor, and if you have 140%, which is the maximum you can get, that will be multiplied by 2.4. 1 plus 1.4, 100% plus another 140%. Then your warrior damage will actually be 48% instead of the usual 20%. And 48% is more than 40% elemental damage. Your elemental damage will not be multiplied by weapon damage. That's the reason why going for the warrior damage here, 20% warrior damage, is always better than going for elemental damage. The bracers are no real surprise. We have warrior damage, 50% crit damage, 100% crit damage while full health, and we engrave 10% crit chance on it. Of course, you could also have those engravings in a different order and then simply engrave what is missing from these three. The belt is pretty similar. We have warrior damage, 100% crit damage while full health, 10% crit chance, and here, if possible, if you have the Nemean Lion set, you should engrave the 5% crit chance and 25% crit damage while full health. That is the reduced set bonus when you engrave the Nemean Lion set bonus on different epic gear, and that will give you an additional 5% crit chance to get to 95% crit chance in total, because this build will only use 95% crit chance. If you don't have the Nemean Lion set, then you could go for 20% warrior damage here and instead engrave the 10% crit chance on the bighorn bow. But when you do that, you have to drop one of those three legendary engravings which you have on your three weapons. So you have to decide which one to keep and which not. You can actually drop the 100% damage play at full health, or you drop the hunter damage conversion or armor penetration. But I think the best option is actually to just play at 90% crit chance, because you won't notice a big difference anyway. Playing at 95% or 90% is still very good. There is no real difference, and you will even get more damage with the additional warrior damage here. And then on the torso we have warrior damage, 50% crit damage, 30% damage with heavy blunts, and 20% damage with heavy weapons. Of course, the order doesn't matter, you can just simply engrave what is missing from those three if you get a similar item. And here you can clearly see that we don't lose any crit damage. Heavy weapons are the only weapons where we can get 140% weapon damage and don't lose any critical damage. And that's the reason why a heavy blunt or heavy axe build will always have the highest higher crit damage when you just go for maximum damage. If you try that with swords and daggers, you would lose 50% crit damage on the helmet, or with spears and staffs you would lose 20% weapon damage on the boots. But here we can use the perfect warrior boots again with warrior damage, 100% crit damage while full health, 20% crit chance, and engrave another 20% warrior damage on it. Again, you have to upgrade it to full 20% to do that. All in all, we will get the following stats of 409.5% warrior damage, 201% assassin damage. We have 140% damage with heavy blunts, 95% chance, and 750% critical damage. We also get an additional 60% fire damage to boost our damage even further. There are not much resistances here in this build because you will have so much damage that you don't need them anyway. When we check out the abilities, I used 193 ability points for the basic variant, so 400 points are the amount I did not use. You only need 193 points if you make the basic variant for this build. And the abilities you should definitely get are Sixth Sense, because Sixth Sense slows down time. It also gives you an insane hunter damage boost, it doubles all your hunter damage while these enemies have an exclamation mark, but it also slows them down. And that's your opportunity to increase your warrior damage by running around them, using the damage when time is slowed down boost, and hit them perfectly from behind to get the maximum out of your damage. Unlock your poison or fire arrows by putting 2 points on Arrow Master, not more than that. Go for 3 points on multi-shot, because multi-shot is really useful in conquest battles. The devastating shot is probably the most easiest to use. Make sure that you always fully charge your arrow, only then you will do the maximum 400%. If you not fully charge them, it will be below the 400% multiplier. Other than that, you could of course also go for the Predator shot. The Predator shot deals 600%, so way more than the devastating shot, but it's kind of slow and also more difficult to use, so I definitely prefer the devastating shot. Also, the Predator shot will deal up to 14 million damage in this build. And of course, don't forget to get Archery Master, because that will also refill your first adrenaline segment. It gives you 40% hunter damage, which will be converted to 20% warrior damage, and it also refills your first adrenaline segment, so that's a must-have ability. I didn't go for the Overpower Bow Strike, because Overpower Bow Strike is bugged. It doesn't work with the Bighorn Bow, it only works when you not use it, and the Ghost Arrows are not so important anyway in my opinion. But you should definitely go for the Charged Heavy Attack, because with blunts and swords it is one of the best abilities. It costs no adrenaline and deals up to 3 times the damage from a heavy attack, so that will easily be over 12 million damage here with this build. Then don't forget all the passive damage boosters, 40% warrior damage, 10% crit chance, more armor and resistance. Then you can decide to put 3 points here on Flaming Attacks. Flaming Attacks unlocks the fire damage boost. We get additional 60% fire damage whenever you activate the fire damage. You can also decide to engrave fire damage permanently on your melee weapon. In this case, you might drop the 100% damage but health cap to 25%. And put weapon damage becomes fire damage on your left melee weapon. Then you have the 60% fire damage boost permanently active instead of the health cap. And then don't forget to put your 3 points on Fire Mastery to actually get 40% additional fire damage. Put 3 points on Overpower Attack, strongest attack here in the game with this warrior build. I decided not to use Ares Madness here in this build, because it is not really an assassin build. We don't have enough assassin damage to make real use of it. But of course you could still go for the Battle Cry to just amplify your warrior damage a bit. If you have the Legacy DLC, then you should definitely get Fury of the Bloodline. Of course, Ring of Chaos, 5 million damage here, totally crazy in this build, and then Second Wind as usual. In the Assassin tree, even though this is a warrior and hunter build, you should still go for Shadow Assassin to get the 50% additional critical damage here from the Shadow Assassin ability. If you still want to do some assassinations, then I would suggest you go for Rush Assassination and Critical Assassination. But Stealth Master is definitely a must-have, so you can skip Rush and Crit Assassinations, but definitely go for Stealth Master, because that gives you an additional 10% damage overnight. For the mastery points for the basic variants, I would propose to go for 12 points on hunter damage, because you will still convert the 16% hunter damage to be 8% warrior damage, but that is not your main focus. You should first focus on crit chance, crit damage and headshot damage here. But your main focus should definitely be here in the warrior tab, the warrior damage, put 12 points on that, and most important, the damage with heavy blunts. Damage with heavy blunts is your biggest damage driver. It's even more important than critical damage. I know I have to say this every time, but damage with swords, damage with daggers, damage with heavy blunts, damage with whatever weapon is more important than critical damage, and you should definitely go for it first. Then of course you can put a couple of points on fire damage and armor penetration if you have them, but then again here in the assassin tree we have even much more important stuff. 15 points on crit chance while full health, 15 points on crit damage while full health, and if you have still something left, then put them here on damage while full health. That will be the 193 points, and you should easily get them when you just play the game and get the DLC. However, if you have more, if you have over 400 points, then I would suggest you max out the hunter damage, max out the crit chance, crit damage and headshot damage here in the hunter tab, put a couple of points here on the other hunter abilities, put a couple of points on adrenaline and headshot, chance to not consume special arrows, damage with hunter abilities, go for melee charging speed a little bit, max out the damage of heavy blunts and warrior damage of course. The most important thing is to max out the existing abilities first before you add some of these fancy other stuff here. So also max out fire damage and armor penetration. Then you can decide to put a couple of points here on damage dealt restored as health and warrior abilities. Definitely cool is putting some points here on damage whenever time is slowed down. Also assassin damage can't hurt. Max out the crit chance, crit damage stuff here. Put a couple of points on adrenaline as you like. Then health gain per adrenaline spent is a real nice trick to get up to full health completely refilled when you have the Falx of Olympus equipped, so you get 22.5% refilled from your 25% health whenever you use it. And then of course go for cooldown, go for damage and assassin abilities or whatever you like. There's no trick in this build, there's no assassin damage on melee hit, nothing like that. It's pure warrior damage madness, and I hope you really like it, I hope you enjoy it. Please don't forget to subscribe, leave me a like, and see you next time.